Greetings, everyone. Greetings, antis. Greetings, brethren and sisters. Greetings, lawmakers. Greetings, police, Leah. And greetings, everyone else who might be watching. I'm contacting you here personally from the wonderful scenery of Copenhagen. You can see the snail out there. And I'm coming forward to you a bit anonymous because I'm not a complete fool, but a bit anonymous. I know there's tons of metadata, so I didn't bother going elsewhere. On my phone in this video, you will have tracked me down in a matter of moments, but for the sake of my anonymity over the course of my local area, I prefer to arrive here and be faceless in this rather long ordeal explaining to you where pedophilia belongs in nature. I'm a philosopher, and I haven't got an education in philosophy. I have a lot of informal education, not ad hoc, autodidact. I made my own path towards wisdom. School ABT. I learned everything from life and my own conclusions, and I've been working for a period of 6 years, also working with pedophilia in the philosophical reign. And incidentally, it turns out that pedophilia is the meaning of life book. Everyone's been watching, looking for it, and the coherent proof thereof is what these videos is about. Why pedophilia is the meaning of life for everyone and all life. Now, not everyone in all life is pedophile, as you in a thought. Because it's got to be bonkers. But the point is that everyone grows. Everyone becomes greater than they were. Now, it doesn't mean that a senior citizen grows into becoming a pedophile in his life, but we transcend. And every religion, let's start there. Let's start from the religious outset, then we'll get to the practical proof after. They both support each other. Is that every religion speaks about afterlife. What is the afterlife? And when you think about that, for every religion, and I'm not saying you have to be religious to watch this video, far from it, I just wanted to philosophize with me, that every religion speaks about you dying and going to the heaven or hell, and then along the path getting judged. That's Islam, that's Judaism, that's Christianity, and probably a lot more that I don't know about. Especially in Hinduism, they speak about reincarnation. And they speak about the silly concept called karma. No proof of that. But the point is that that if we do have an afterlife, what would we do of that? That's the first point. We, of course, transcend into life yet again to learn something. Learn something we didn't know about in the earlier stages. And this is where it gets interesting. Because when you look at the practical proof, there's a whole array of rationale falling into a giant puzzle that just turns out to be a vivid wonder of beauty. See, about 14, 15, 16, whenever they decide on it, billion years ago the universe was formed. And no one knows where it came from. No one knows where all the materials that formed the Big Bang came from, so we could be here in the first place. We just say Big Bang. Well, end of story. Okay, but you now have a universe consisting of something that just miraculously appeared out of the blue for you to be here. That's not very coherent, but that's the argument. So we're stuck with that for now in science. We can't go back further than conclude that the universe expands, that it must have had an origin, and that origin seems to be 14, 15 billion years ago, and that life spawned thereof 3.8 billion years ago here on Earth. Now, A crucial factor to life spawning on the planet 11 billion years later than the origin of the universe puts us in a situation where the universe is not really old. I mean, our greatest ancestor is 3.8 billion years ago old, and the universe, according to science, is 9 billion years older than that. So things happen in a rapid pace. All this hugeness of the universe has happened from the origin of the Big Bang as if it were, and 9 billion years later to the first ancestor of ours, the common grandfather or grandmother of all life on this planet, making all of us a uniform family, from even the smallest strain of grass to the 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 greatest elephant or the greatest dinosaurs that ever lived. We are all connected. We are all family. We're not all one. It's your legs. It's your gift and it's your journey. But we're not without relations to any and all life on this planet. So that's interesting. But 3.8 billion years ago, something happened. Something small in relation to two factors that I do know about. I am not particularly well orientated around the evolution of the early stages of life because it never really interested me because we are here. And yes, this is a scientific explanation on what pedophilia is. It might be boring, but if you're suffering with pedophilia, then see this, because then you won't suffer anymore. Then you'll understand yourself and be what you have all the right to be in the whole fucking world, a proud pedophile. Because you, my child, are one of the eldest and you deserve so much respect. But no one knows this because they never calculated on it. And this is my calculations I want to give you. So I never dabbled in philosophy in relation or knowledge accumulation in relation to the primary stages of life. But I do know two things mattered. That you have carbon molecules that either under lightning, under pressure of water, or heat from magma, from lava, from what is that word? Lava, magma in English. When you have the boiling, scorching soils of the volcanoes. Those three factors helped, along with something called entropy, or the absence of entropy, or the victory over entropy, to form carbon molecules. And these carbon molecules had this criteria that it assembled more carbon molecules and could split itself. So that in relations to falling apart, which is basically what entropy means, that something tilts or falls, but basically seeks an equilibrium, a final flatline of non-energy. And this always happens in nature. Everything tries to become the least amount of disorder it can be. So it's, if you have a sand castle and you leave it out long enough, it will fall into absolute nothing. Now, the sand that it was built up will be around, but it will just be everything else, like the smallest part of energy that it can be. And this is pretty much entropy. And this has been struggling with the carbon molecules to form the entity of aware microbiology. And in the first many, many years, I believe there was no life in the first billions of years. I believe the life that formed 3.8 billion years ago was structural life, that it had the compounds of the molecules related to the nuclear compound, to the carbon compound, in order to assemble itself into more pristine and more crystallized crystals or forms, shapes of carbon that then split itself and did the same over and over again until it finally, from the splitting, several billion years after the first acids had been formed, as they're called, achieved what is the most important junction of all life on this planet, and the story will repeat itself on all planets with the criteria of being in the habitable zone. I believe life is a natural law, because if the compounds of the way that, or if the way that carbon molecules assembles themselves is uniform for all the universe, then wherever there's liquid water and heat from volcanoes or lightning, then life will perform the same process and become life. Then life will happen from carbon. Now, along the path from these crystallized little entities that just sucked up more carbon in order to live, because there's one universal rule to life. You need kilojoules to sustain your biological harness. You need energy. And that energy can only come from, in our time, sun, wind, gravity. That's not really giving us energy. And then eating and drinking the compounds of other living creatures, who equally calculate on their options in favor of devouring their bodies, so you become nourished and fulfilled through that devouring. In essence, you cannot live without killing. And you might kill indirectly in our time by you going to the supermarket and pick up something someone else killed. But the death is on you. You killed this pig or this cow or this carrot when you eat it. But that doesn't mean you're guilty of anything. The lion isn't scorned for hunting the deer. There is no karma for the lion. There's no vengeance for the lion. Everything is about one word, and one word only: love. And these videos here, keeping you a bit held here, is that it's all about love, even pedophilia. And this is a story about why pedophilia is the highest form of love. There's many, many forms of love, but the highest mortal, physical aspect of love is pedophilia. And this is why. So, in short terms, the universe was formed about 14, 15 billion years ago. A lot of matter flies around, becomes the sun, ejaculates matter, becomes asteroid clusters, forms a planet we know as Earth. There's water there, Earth is formed, the water is attached, the Earth hardens, and atmosphere is formed along the path, sustainable. And then about 4 billion, 3.8 billion, 3.9, 4 billion years ago, these first amino acids are formed that can reproduce themselves and absorb energy from the water or from the sun and from carbon that's abundant in nature and on the planet. And then a long while progresses, and then it happens. One day, I don't know if it was 500 million years ago in the Cambriatic time, or if it was far prior. But along those 3.5 billion years, 3.3 billion years, it's been prudent for the carbon molecules to be more adapt in absorbing more carbon molecules. So it must have kilojoules carbon in order to live. And the life became adaptation in order to absorb kilojoules. And we see that everywhere in nature today. We have a myriad of species, all adapt and adapt into um, to to specialize into absorbing energy from that resource. And that's pretty much everything nature does. It absorbs energy from that resource. Then it develops a species that can absorb that type of abundant energy wherever found, and it does that. And for instance, a spider is much older than human beings. I believe it goes 500 million years back in time, but it has not yet met new criteria other than size for its need to hunt. It's a spider is a spider is a spider because it's not needed to change. It hasn't been needed to change for 400 million years or more. Whereas other species are in competitive reign against each other and changes vividly, mammals specifically. And rolling back a bit, we get to the age of the eye. That my claim is that even single-celled amoeba has a small little ability to be aware and calculate on the present. Because if it could choose between, if it just was a mechanical gizmo, imagine that you consider a single-cell organism a mechanical device like a radio car. You push it and it drives, but there's no one and nothing in there that makes decisions. If we consider the single-celled amoeba in the same way, we would immediately be reluctant. We would understand in our souls that something wrong with our perceptions. There's a disregard for the life. And this is because the single-celled amoeba makes a choice between, let's say it's lying on a piece of grass, and on the right side there's a carcass. And of course it chooses. There's a small little observer in there, the eye, that calculates on its options in the present, like we do in favor of fulfillment. And if it can choose and move its limbs or its little hairs, this little single cell thing, and move towards the carcass, or do so, it becomes nourished more by turning right than turning left through choice. Then there is, of course, choice. And choice is pretty much what this is about. It's not a critique. We're not going to get us some hook where I say, haha, you fucking pedos, haha. It's more the other way, haha, you fucking Leas. The point is that choice is everything it's about. Because choice is something. But there's a catch to choice. And this happened to very early in our species. Those between 500 billion years ago and 3.8 billion years ago. So those 3 billion years prior to the Cambriatic age, something happened that allowed us to feel fulfillment and become grateful from it. Like life is created in the universe itself by the design of the universe. Billions and billions of planets all over this galaxy with possibility of life, with liquid water, that by default will have some sort of evolution by default, because carbon will tie itself up to form life. Then what matters is that when that little single cell amoeba has produced that observer, that little I am, in all this loneliness, the first little grandfather or grandmother, 4 billion years ago, was there alone on the planet, surrounded by things that barely were, and he was the first, or she was the first, to know I calculate on myself in the present. I calculate on input output in the present. I am. I'm fucking lonely. I'm gonna make myself a double one. I think as I wrote in my journal here, I think it's safe to assume that that little single-celled amoeba who ate enough to make a duplicate of itself with the observer, the first one who had it, would have loved that child he made. And I think that's that, imagine that being aware that you can't calculate on anything, you just I am. And you calculate on hunger and temperature and dryness. And he or she was the first of all of us. In that vast, vast planet, looking completely different now than it did then, or then than it does now. And this little child of the void calculates on its options. I am. You can argue if a single cell's organism doesn't think what you're thinking about, man. Let's look at it. How long do we have to to cut down till there's there's no eye? Imagine this: you have a cat, right? I'm afraid I'm recording here at the beach, and they might. Please coming. Oh, they freaking the fuck out. Anyway, if you have a cat, you know, and if you have a pet or ever has had a pet, you know that the pet is actually loving you. But it has a brain a tenth the size of yours. So where does the distinction go between brain size and awareness? And if you have a fish that has a tenth the size of the brain of a dog or a cat, and chihuahua, there's nothing. And it goes along the seabed and finds a stone and spits it out because it knows I am not going to get fulfilled from a stone. Then it finds a slug and says, I'm going to get fulfilled from a slug. Then how far down in brain cells do we have to go before choice is eradicated and awareness is eradicated? These are valid questions because it puts us in a situation where we are forced to confront everything we know about from science, that everything is just reflexes for anything but humans, which is what we are told as kids and doesn't think anymore about. But anyone with an eye, and that goes all the way down to single-celled amoeba that makes a choice between left and right, has awareness in the now. Based on its senses, it may just be awareness and hunger and not hunger, temperature and not temperature, dry and not dry. But it knows it's alive. And therefore it is. I resonate with my surroundings. I resonate, therefore I am. I calculate an input output, therefore I am. And that's pretty much interesting because when this little amoeba had been in the waters there and had created like a zillion little single-celled amoeba for whenever how many years it took for the whole planet to be full of these little gizmos, then something happened, because if it ate too much, it would blow up. And there's something else in eating, a fully fundamental structure and function in the universe built in by its own criteria. When you eat from having been deprived of kilojoules, you're no longer deprived of kilojoules, you are fulfilled. And this is a very interesting situation because when you're fulfilled, something happens. And this is the cardinal awareness structure that we're going to get into. When you're fulfilled, you have a slight, if not massive, amount of gratitude. And this goes for all of us. All life follows this path, that we are stuck in a situation, and this is the cardinal awareness structure, that we're driven by pain of hunger, or pain of thirst, or pain of release, or pain in any form and shape, in order to, which we immediately do when pain arises in our body in one way or another, through hunger or thirst or desire or yearn or whatever need that might provoke pain, like myself right now sitting here with dry throat, which I hate because it pains me to have dry throat. So I seek relishing, and therefore I start from my yearn, which is a combination in the trichotonomics between pain that I hate, that my system interprets as yearn, because I'm an advanced species. So my pain is interpreted on the smaller scales and more natural scales as a hatred that I hate so much that it starts a yearn, my interpreted feeling for drinking. So I start a hunt, which is every agenda you have. Every agenda you have along the path is that you hunt. Everything you do is for hunting, or an action rogue from your yearn, from your hatred, from your pain, in favor of being winning, in favor of being fulfilled, in favor of being grateful. And now why gratitude? You say it could just be satisfaction. Yeah, but it is gratitude. Imagine here that you couldn't blink with your eyes for 2 minutes and then were allowed. You would be, oh, thank God. You would feel the gratitude. So every time you blink with your eyes, you are in fact performing a yearn that's on the subliminal levels of your operative, the biology, that starts a pain. A pain is formed from dry eyes that you hate, that starts a yearn, that starts a hunt, the action, with blinking, which moistens your eyes and then produces fulfillment, that produces gratitude. And it's not a lot of gratitude, it's a small little bing on the gratitude manometer when you blink with your eyes. Same if you couldn't breathe. I know your exercise levels, as you can hear mine are pretty bad. So if I couldn't breathe for 30 seconds and then got up from the water and could breathe again, I'll be, oh, thank God, oh, I didn't die, oh, thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God, oh, thank God. Gratitude. Now, if you couldn't eat for a day and a half and then were allowed to eat, I would be, thank God, Mother God, thank you. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. If I couldn't have an orgasm for 3 days and then got laid, I'd be like, oh, thank God, thank God, thank God. You are the most beautiful creature in the world, woman. But the point is, all that we feel is a perpetual stance, and I'm going to repeat it one more time, that you have a hatred towards the pain you're feeling at any one given time that motivates you. So you're always driven by pain. That starts a hatred that phrases or forms the need to action through your yearn, the link between body and soul. Your yearn can be, I yearn for a dream fulfilled, I yearn for a preaching pussy or boy's cock, I yearn for a senior lady 90 years old, I yearn for a cow, whatever you yearn for, right? Or whatever job you want, whatever food you want, whatever drink and adventure you want. It's all about gratitude. And this is where it gets interesting. Fulfillment and hunt, yearn, hatred, and pain. But there's a twist to this. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. This is that you can easily win without being grateful. Right now, I could perform an action where I take my wonderful cigarette here and butt it on my knee. It's a free will action. I could do it, but it would harm me ever so sincerely, and I wouldn't win with it, and I wouldn't be grateful. So you can easily win without being grateful, but you can't be grateful without having won. I want you to think about those two lines in particular. I'm going to repeat them one more time. You can easily win without being grateful, but you can't be grateful without having won. And this is interesting because when you look at that, the whole implication of that system is that love decides. Love decides totally for you how to fulfill you. You can try to fulfill yourself in many, many ways, but the whole journey is to learn how to be grateful. And that's how you organize your thoughts and embraces. That it's up to you to find out what makes you grateful. And you gotta do that because it's the highest outcome for you. If you keep your gratitude as your true north, you will never be wrong. You will always be right. But that brings us back to the pedophilia. In order for me to be grateful and fulfilled, I would need to do some very, very, according to society's, not nature's, not love's, but according to society's eyes, I would need to do some very horrible things in order to be fulfilled and grateful. This is my yearn. And this brings us back to the Cambriatic age and back to the single-celled organism. Because nature has three corners to its operators. We're only told in this world where we learn everything about what goes on around us, but nothing about what goes on inside of us. All these institutions we learn about, so we don't think, so we don't act, so we're not free. So we are cogs in the machinery and no one's happy, and we have more and more laws that incarcerate us even more and more, so everyone can be there. So degeneration takes place. No one has a future on this planet because everyone's going to die of inbred diseases over the next 50,000 years. And the last spastic is going to lie in a bed somewhere, just decomposing with robots around him that doesn't give a fuck with no one else around him but animals and those machinery, because he'll be too flogged with diagnoses to carry the legacy of humankind forward. And that's the end game of mankind, because we do not weed out the weak, because we do not allow the hunter. And that is the trigonometrics of mankind. That is of nature. That is flora, all that is green and all that blooms, all that is plant and tree life, that's flora. Then you have fauna, and that's everything that eats the flora. And then you have the third one, the most important. That's where we are, pedophiles and brothers and sisters around us. We are hunters. Sexual predators, as they call us. So they did add up the math, but they couldn't figure out what to do with it. So we could all benefit from it. They just said there, pity, then it's wrong. And that is the cornerstone of nature. Flora, hunters, and fauna. And without the hunter, nature, without the wolves, as the sheep left, as we see here, a planet with 8 billion sheep, where no one is exceptional, where everyone believes somehow in all our individuality that we are all equal. Ironically, pointing out the insanity of society. And the problem is that no one can stand democracy. And the problem is that the moment the first suicide occurred based on democracy, we should have stopped it ages ago. And I have a solution. But we cannot use democracy anymore. We cannot use it. It just makes laws, keeps us incarcerated, and it will never make us grateful because we cannot defend our love. And we cannot fight against idiocy with democracy. We can make laws for this and that situation, and we can incarcerate the hunter, kill the hunter in death chambers, gunshots, and whatnot. But he will always be there as he must, and therefore society has got to adapt, change. Otherwise, we're just going to have a myriad of unhappiness where no one can be there and where everything is mediocre. And the insanity and gender confusion will take so much space that we can't be here. And in the end, it's just going to be a horrifying shit show where people like you and me are going to get executed on TV because the hysteria against the hunter is going to go ape. So if you want to live, my brother and sister, then we got to organize. But we're going to proceed with the evidence before we talk about that. The point is that that little single-celled amoeba soon split into those trichotonomics. And some became plants, algae, and some became animals that ate the algae, and someone later became animals that ate those that ate the algae. And all lasted to produce feces for the first corpses, blood. And they must be there for nature to have a perpetual balance and evolution. Otherwise, as just came, we have 8 billion people accumulating all nature's resources and breaking Gaia's, the planet's life. Veins over and over again with the cancer that is marked And when she collapses, she's of course going to take all of us with her. And we can't be here if there's no balance, no natural relations between what she demands of us, nature and Gaia, what they demand of us, and what we kid ourselves with. We have got to have balance, and we have got to have a natural answer. But when we know that the whole of nature is a battle where you have to be grateful on your legs, because gratitude is the outcome of all fulfillment. Every fulfillment you have that makes you grateful is a moment of valid honor. But you, as me, needs to do horrifying things to little girls and little boys. And the question we ask is why? And it's overwhelmingly simple. There's no balance between the prey, the hunter, and the grass. The flora, the fauna, and the hunter, and as such, Mother Nature will produce even more and more hunters. More killers, more rapists, more pedophiles, more murderers, more hunters. And she'll produce and produce and produce. But as long as the rigid nature of democracy is so firm, then we can't be here. We're going to get suffocated. People sit in their cells when they're not working in front of that little screen, lost to their nature. It's horrifying. Everything they are is suffocated. Compassion, most horrifying perspective, and justice and morals, tradition and law. All those things that we pride ourselves with are, in lieu of all this that I'm about to tell you, insane. You can't use it right now. That's just mediocrity. Even though you and I are totally different in our construction, height, weight, perspective, intelligence. We're not the same. We can't be equal. We have different options, different perspectives. Some are growing, some have grown, some are dying, some are living, some are born, some are dead. There's not one of us who's equal to the next. And to think that we can be is absolutely insane. Life and society has to be gratifying, not fair. Life and society has to be gratifying, not fair. Do you understand? That the whole of the journey forward here is not for you to be in an equalized box with your perversions of opinion. That it can't be a pity in nature that you so vividly arise from, that you so vividly come from, all based on survival, the fittest, the strongest, and the most adept. And that's the nature you have with you, human. A nature where for the last 3.8 billion years, every one of your ancestors has fought a battle so brutal that all of them has been killed under excruciating pain and eaten, some alive, for you to be here today. And you claim, based on your insanity, that it can't be a pity in nature. When you, Angie, are sitting there wondering, how do we get this guy so we can fuck him up? How do we get this guy so we can fuck him up? You're wondering that. And you're wondering this based on a construct of a moral, a societal definition of what's right and wrong, instead of asking yourself, how do I become grateful on my legs in the time I have till I die? Now you're saying you want to fuck up Peter? No, you want to discharge your hate in one direction where it's almost valid for the law, towards pedophiles, whom are your eldest, which we are about to prove. You're not wise, and you're not right. And you are a product of society so sick that everything you're told is wrong. And you are suffocating in this construct, under these criteria, from this society, leading to your frustration, which I'm trying to help you out of. I'm trying to help you. There'll be some 2 hours later in the movie from the corner Rose Cancilli. It's going to be a long one. And again, I urge you to put on your speakers and check your headphones and walk around just listening to this, see this tape a few times. I haven't slept for the last 30 hours, but I'm very extremely tired of all this shit that I'm going through in my personal life. And I don't know how much time I have left in order to relay all this research. So I chose to do this now, this morning. The beach. And I hope we can get through with this, so I can get through to all you people, both aunties, Leah, lawmakers, and my brothers and sisters in sexuality and not. It's a vivid journey being a human being, and I've been fortuitous more than most. I've been in the toy school in Denmark. I've traveled. I haven't had to work for the last 28 years. I haven't had a job. Just live well, live free. But it did work. And I worked very, very hard to find these answers here. I'm lucky. I discharged. I reacted. I anger out. I screamed at the oceans and the desert. And I learned to say the most important thing in life. It was yesterday. It was yesterday. That's the most important words in life. It was yesterday. It was yesterday. All that shit, all that anguish, all that pain, all that hate, all that meanness, all that being put down, all that shit, all that child nightmare, all that fuckery, all that hate. Gotta keep a positive, gratified focus. What makes me grateful? What makes you grateful? Right? That's the question. Tomorrow comes. Tomorrow comes. And everything on this planet is insane but nature. Which is why I drive out here so often. I drive here every day. I live in the city, and everyone around me is insane. I have all the reason in the world to be pitiful, to be proud to brink of my extremes. I have so much to be proud of by having my sexuality. But I can't tell us so. Everyone's the same. It's just there. The cornerstone of democracy. In the vivid nature of brutality in nature, it can't be a pity for society. In a nature built entirely on violence. And you call the devolution and path away from that civilization and progress. That is so fucking insane. That is so fucking insane. And I can't express to you how lost you are. You know, Nancy, you're sitting out there listening, and you know exactly how sick you are. You know this. It's you're sitting there with your violence and with your chiseled knives in order to produce the circumstances where it for a grown man and a hunter can't be a pity for his prey. And I don't know if you can understand. We're going to try to produce the circumstances that you do understand. But all this hatred and anger, it's not against us. It's just a way out for you to be angry. It's a way out for you to call honor when there is none. Honor is living for your own gratitude on your own legs. This makes you remarkable. This makes you strong. This makes you honored, and thus gives you honor. Because you breach the status quo and this feeling of being in a barrel of herring, right? So having the courage, and I want that from some of you. I don't have a lot from you. I want that from some of you. I want you to understand that being courageous, having the courage to carve yourself a happy life is the life you need. You need yourself to be grateful, because in the end, it's one thing only. It's your legs. Now, what I do with my legs And what any pedophile does with their legs, or what the government does with their legs, what you do with what your peers do with their legs, it's none of your business unless it negatively involves you. And this is one of the core criteria, that it's your life, it's your legs, and it's your relationship. And of course, the child can't say no or yes. It's not supposed to. It's a bitch. And this is where it gets interesting, because a bitch has no right. I'm not going to give you my name now. But the point is, I'm just a messenger. Now, regardless of anything else here, listen to the tape and find out in that what I'm talking about. Because the entireness of our species depends on this path being changed. A society has to be gratifying, not just fair. We're working on something I want you to make a stance on. We have some alchemy. I know you don't believe in this shit, but this is actually how things work. Where we can take an embryo of a child produced from semen from a valid candidate, an egg from a valid candidate, and put them in a plastic container and breed sex slaves that at age 2 will be semen like 10-year-olds. Because we have the alchemy to do it. Is that wrong? Well, the plot thickens is how long has this been going on, and the seller's been well, what wasn't that joke once? There's lots of microplastics and everything. Goes in everything. Even our semen. That means that everyone out there has microplastic in their semen. And that's everyone, even billionaires. That's so fucked up, you know. The kids eat that. Anyway, the point is that all that we do is a perpetual hunt against for fulfillment, for our gratitude, against idiocy. Now, everything you do is a situation. In a situation, you have to zoom out far enough to understand the situation, and you can apply as much of the situation in your calculations relevant to your calculations in the situation to understand the situation. But everything is situations. And every situation holds one optimum, the smartest solution, the most gratifying. Everything else is idiocy, anything but the smartest solution. And this means that you're traversing an option where you perpetually have to make a stance based on how to become grateful. Because that's your entire system. That's the link between bio and spirit. And it's so close, it may even be within the same second or same generation, that being fulfilled beyond not exploding, but knowing when to be full enough, led to gratitude. And since gratitude then became the denominator of everything we did and do, then being grateful for something higher. And this is where the beauty of it comes in, right? Because if love exists as the cardinal things that everything is going through for and from, and gratitude is love's word for herself, to us, for her, then everything we do is a matter of love, if we are gratified through it. And this is interesting. But where the plot thickens, is that again you can easily win without being grateful, but you can't be grateful without having won. Then we got to look at the one. What is one? Winning. And winning is something in the situations. Winning is conclusion of a situation in elevation in hierarchy. Conclusion of a situation in elevation in hierarchy. I repeat that. Conclusion of a situation in elevation in hierarchy. So the hierarchy and the conclusion of the situation leaves the winner as the elevated part over something else for the situation to be concluded with the winner. But winning a conclusion of a situation in elevation and hierarchy is exactly the same as being evil. So you can't be granted gratitude, the essence of being in love, your whole journey through your incarnations, to learn enough about love and pain to deflect and navigate around pain in favor of your gratitude without being evil. Isn't that amazing? Evil. Okay, again, winning, conclusion of a situation. The situation is ended with a conclusion. In the conclusion and ending of the situation, someone in the winner is elevated in the hierarchy among the involved parties. Conclusion of a situation in elevation. Conclusion of a situation in elevation and hierarchy. But that whole line there is exactly the same as what happens when you're evil. So you can easily win without being grateful, but you can't be grateful without having won, and you can't be winning without being evil. Isn't that amazing? So the whole journey is that you're here to learn to navigate in favor of your own personal gratitude. It's your legs. I can't emphasize this enough. You are. It's your legs. It's your gratitude, pain, freedom, joy, hunt, adventure, fulfillment, life, death. Hunt, and so on, and so on, and so on. Fulfillment, joy. Everything you go through is yours. And you have a timer on your legs. Someday you'll die. And that means that you're in a hurry to be as grateful as you want. You can be before you die, because you're going to die. So therefore you have no other option but to make your own gratitude your own true north. But Timon Nasha, this lesson comes from a guy called Goethe. And he said, Timon Nasha carpe diem carpe noctem of a memento mori. And this guy is interesting because Timon Nasha, it means to know thyself. Your whole journey is to know your gratitude when you're young, the link between body and soul. You're young. That's the whole journey. How do I become grateful? Where did I screw up? What can I do better to become more grateful from this pain that I have subjugated myself or someone else to? It's your pain. Okay? But it's also your gratitude when you're wailing yourself out of it. Second thing was carpe diem. Seize the day. And this has got something to do with tomorrow coming. And it almost will. But the other part of that is, it was yesterday. That tomorrow comes, but that everything else, but now and tomorrow was yesterday. And I'm repeating myself, I'm very tired. But it's also worth taking with you, or giving it to you, so you can let go of all this idiocy. And idiocy is anything but the master solution. And you think hunting pedos, Leah and Nancy, is a smart solution. Listen, without the wheat being weeded out, we have degeneration. Our entire species is literally at the line. We have 10 to 20% of the population right now being with deformed genes that is passed on to our offspring. In 50,000 years, there won't be anything left of us. Won't be anything left of us. Just splash believes that nature cannot be there while we've killed all of it in our madness. Naked ladies. I can't see how old they are. Tomorrow comes. Now, when the Trichotonomics have been formed and gratitude had been built into our species, that we are grateful when we reach our fulfillment, then this became the cornerstone of our whole evolution. Breathing, gratitude, blinking with our eyes, gratitude, expressing ourselves with our body language, gratitude, taking a huge dump, gratitude, orgasm, gratitude, hunt, gratitude. Everything we do is a hunt for being grateful, or fulfilled and then grateful. If you want to rule out the beauty of it. And this also applied when we crawled from the seeds of the land about 580 million years ago. The little fish and everything in the Cambriatic age climbed upon land and formed the dinosaurs, or they had another name because the dinosaurs were about 600 to 65 million years ago, and then we had our ancestors had been on the planet 100 million years prior. So after 300 million years of crawling to the land, first rats, that were our ancestors, formed up in tribes. And this is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets really, really, really interesting, because as a rat, you have an environment around you with hunters and prey and flora, as usual. And those hunters were brutal, and you had a clan, you had a family. You were a little rat, you lived under the ground. Above you, huge animals crawled around, and some of them wanted to eat you. I don't know if there were snakes back then, but there probably was. I don't know if there were lizards back then. There probably was. And all these little gizmos and animals, they wanted to eat you and your family, and you had to defend, you had to be violent, you had to be ever so sincerely fucking violent. So the males in those clans, after 100 million years ago, from 200 million years to 100 million years ago, they were fierce. And yes, they ate mostly plants. They were rats, but they also ate insects and had to get their vitamin B12. So they had some carnivore relation. And the relation is that the environment around them was horrifyingly violent. They needed to be on the edge 24/7. They maybe got, I hear that giraffes sleeps 2 minutes a day. We we have 8 to 12 hours in our sanctuary. It's a huge gift. But back then, everything was paranoid. It was always about being on guard, gathering resources, and producing animals, producing offspring. And these animals, they had to divide. I believe that they had to divide between themselves. So the females were at home tending to the offspring that were fragile, couldn't hunt and defend. And the hunters. So the males became the strongest with the violence and muscle. And the females were weaker because they gave to their offspring with the resources there were. Can I just have a massive spasm? Yeah. I'm sorry. Now, regardless of this happening 65 million years ago, 100 million years ago, or 200 million years ago, we know that it happened. That the males took control over the females because the males had to be violent all the time, which was shed upon the females also because they had to be full of violence all the time. So it's not just defending, offending, and hunting, but it's all the time, leading to the females receiving this outlet of violence, leading them to be submissive over a period of evolution. And this is where pedophilia comes in, that after some while, it was a mix between the weaker females receiving the violence and after some time learning to love being with the violence from the male, which is why females today argue we want them to be dominant. And some women who are in contact with her sexuality wants to be choked, wants to be drowned, wants to be tied up, wants to be brutalized. And this is absolutely natural because it's been going on for more than 200 million years, that the female was just a fuck toy for the male and an escape for his excess violence to be discharged into her. But because she grew into that so much that she now needs it, something else happened on the side. That culture started to happen. It happened from the first clan being formed, and then the first offspring from there forming the next. So the clan of mankind is 100, 200 million years old. But the violence has been with us the whole time because it was demanded from nature to be there. But because the female grew into receiving this violence and having had to have had gratitude, otherwise they would have died from meaninglessness and sorrow, then so gratitude saves them, but the only way nature can save them is to make them love the abuse, which is why a female today has no right. She's a bitch and must be treated as such to thrive. But we as men have failed totally. There is no more men left, or a very few amount of them, who beats up and treats their woman as a fuck toy furniture the way that she enjoys it. And the way that she enjoys it is that the less responsibility she has in any other way than to cook and clean and tend to the offspring, the happier she is. Now, a lot of liberated females will say the counter, but they have never been beaten to pulp and have been relieved of this responsibility they have been given from society that is so unnatural against democracy that we're all going to die from it. And this is controversial shit, but they're built like that. And they need it. They need the violence. They in fact need to get shat on. They need to be denominated, to put down, so not in a McKinnon way, but they need to be destroyed. the more they are brutalized in a way where he uses. It's not about putting her down. It's like she's, oh, maybe this, I don't know, I'm still working on it. But she needs to be absolutely subdued and treated like an object for his pleasure. The more she enjoys it. Now, over the time, this became culture. It didn't just become species and culture. It became the way that females were built lesser in physical size, so she couldn't resist the rape. Because if she resisted the rape and had the ability to resist the rape, the children would not be born. So the joy for a male is to treat the bitch as a bitch and fuck her when he wants to, but the joy for the female is to both be violated because her orgasms are triggered that way, but also her offspring. A mother loves her baby endlessly. And it's how it has to be for everything to thrive, because things hasn't changed. Now where the pedophilia comes in is that over time this culture became cock must be taught, because the male still has to be dominant. And he's now dominant on two levels. He's dominant through his violence, but also through his sexuality, because the sexuality became more and more influential in the tribe life, because there was so much spare time with all those kilojoules we gathered together, so there was more spare time. And with that, sex became a nominator. And this means that cock must be taught over after some time, about 100 million years ago, 50 million years ago, or 200 million years ago, I'm not to tell. But at some point, the female was built to be raped and to have no offspring. The man was built muscular to rape her, to have the joy of fucking her. And the children needed to learn this routine. And as well as all other things, nature needs her hunters for her balance. So that's the first 2 points where pedophilia is essential. We gotta weed out the idiots. Because an idiot has no right and a bitch has no right. But it gets even more interesting looking at it spiritually. We can only speculate, of course. But we have the pragmatic evidence with this rationale, just given, that pedophilia is an essential part of our society and cannot be thrown out. But what do we do with the fact that it can't be a pity? That's the next part after this. That the spiritual compound shows us something completely different than what we are told through religions from Bedouins who didn't know better. But these are my speculations as a medium and as a Reiki master and psychic, and above all, an alchemist and philosopher, is that if we imagine that our souls are built on day one, there's two types of souls. There's those built by God, built in the creation room, where He creates our soul from all the some kind showing up here. And He creates a room. Imagine this in the afterlife where the gods are. Where would Jesus be? Where would Vishnu be? Where would Ganesha be? Where would Muhammad or Allah or Jehovah or David or the old Indian gods? And remember that all cultures has always been spiritual in one way or another. It's only through the domination of the World Bank, who wants us divided from our spirituality and throws us in a world where we learn everything about what goes on around us, but nothing about what goes on inside of us, that we have concluded that there cannot be a God, because basically of the scientific revolution, which did help us, but which never concluded that gratitude is the meaning of life, and therefore love is the meaning of life. because it wasn't fortuitous for the World Bank to divide us with the truth. They divided us with lies. So there's a mafia sitting under the governments, leading to all the businesses, leading to a mafia down there that has under the businesses, where they all together make decisions for all of us. And when the Natural Revolution came in around 1900, then everyone argued that you cannot have, or Popple argued that you have a valid claim until proven wrong just once. Which is why I'm saying that this is speculations, because I can't go and talk to God for you and say, okay, we would like to know how you create the souls in heaven. But I believe that He can. And I believe there's two types of souls. I believe there's the ones having had evolution for the last 3.8 billion years, and then there's the ones He creates. So there's two types of souls in life. One fast track, those who are created by God, and those naturally occurring, those simply just leaving a body upon death and going to the next body upon birth. But in that in-between, that opens the door, there's a whole realm of gods up there. And if we're here to reincarnate and reincarnate and reincarnate and reincarnate until what? Then we got to look at the purpose on why and how. And I believe personally, I have a pretty good stance on this, that we're here to be chiseled, that everything is a way for us to teach our souls about pain, so we can navigate around it in favor of being pedophile, homicidal, rapist, killers, because that's the highest content and pleasure there is, which is the outcome of all souls. So all the gods, Jehovah, Allah, Jesus, Yahweh, all of them, and all the gods, Vishnu, Krishna, all of them must have been, in order to elevate themselves enough to be gods, must have traveled the journey of having been idiots and then being risen enough to be homicidal, rapist, pedophile, monsters according to society, hunter. Because if everything is about gratitude, then the highest gratitude is, of course, being relieved of so much pain as necessary, as much as possible, while having the benefits of the navigation you have learned in your journey to your advantage, because it's your legs, it's your gratitude. And in that, it's pretty much an idea that everything you do as a pedophile is being an elevated species compared to a homosexual who just left being a female, a bitch, which is why they still show their paint through their beards through their paint in the face, because they still think they're female, which is why a homosexual has no right. Still, she want to go up because the first stance of a hunter is to learn how to sneak, to be avoiding the greater powers, and therefore a homosexual has a criteria. He needs the bitch beaten out of him. After having been a homosexual, he will turn into something violent as a male, like a Smith, a big chunky guy, defining his discharge through violence. But he won't be that smart, because he still has yet to learn about the benefits of being wise. But he needs to learn about how to be strong in his body, and then learn that that's not a solution until he chooses to be wise, which is where all the things starts to fall into place for him. That he becomes a navigator in life to his own advantage. But because we don't have the culture of this understanding, then we're completely fucking lost. And the point is that, yes, it's a pity for the child, But when she goes to mother, or he goes to mother upon having been raped, killed, and eaten, the answer is always the same. Yes, it was sour. But how do you think he felt? What was his joy? What was her joy? Because hunters are born male and female alike, and there must be a weaning out of the idiocy. But we are kept by a massive number because of democracy that is a cancer structure around our planet. You can imagine that a city being a cancer boil, and links between it being intercom and intercommunication and streets and highways and railroads that connects these cells of cancer against all things that is Gaia. So she just suffocates. You realize, and I'm not advocating that there's something wrong with you. I'm just saying, do you realize that we produce twice as much food per day as we need? It means that twice the amount of animals are killed every day for the economics, instead of having the honor of hunting and killing your own prey, which you can't because there's too many people. And that's how lost we are. That's how lost we are. Now, in order to organize, if you want to do that, and that goes for both you, Leah, for you, and for you, brothers and sisters in pedophilia, there's a system called veto in favor of gratitude. When you have a group of people, imagine 100 people, and you have 10 departments with 10 people in every one of them. Then every department chooses a better provider, the best man. Can't be a female, can't be a homosexual, can't be an idiot, can't be a black soul. Black soul is often white Caucasians, so white men with black hair. They are not perpetually black souls, but when you look at them and think that's a bad motherfucker, you don't want him on the table. Dark souls are souls from hell reincarnated to kill us all. It's a long story. But then you have a department with 10 groups, with 10 people and 9 groups around it. Also 10 people in every group. And every group chooses a better provider to go to and form the inner circle. The inner circle is now 10 people with 10 groups around them, with 9 people in the surrounding groups and 11 groups total in this case. Now the case is presented for the inner circle. And the way it goes is that everyone inquires why till everyone has understood exactly what the case is about. And then of the inner circle. And then you say veto in favor of gratitude in relation to solution-oriented habitus. And that's pretty much it. You say veto in favor of gratitude, then everything solves itself. You say veto / victory in favor of gratitude / the group in case of disagreement, and then you split up and divide into one or more groups. And there's 3 rules. 4 rules. Amore omniventium. Love must always win. Second rule, there can't be idiocy. There can't be anything but the smartest solution. Third rule, there can't be bitches. There can't be men who you consider a bitch. And a bitch has a right to a man has a right to defend against being a bitch or being called a bitch by violence through duel. But this duel, if proposed, So a man is called a bitch in the council. And he says, I'm not a bitch. And he says, prove it. The other guy says. Now a duel is on. Can't be stopped. But the guy who is defending himself can at all times say, I want a duel in debate. So he can defend his stance on why he's not a bitch verbally. And this will always outrule any duel physically. Okay, so there can't be idiocy, there can't be bitches, and there can't be vengeance. So all the hunters in prisons, everyone, all of them out. Let them hunt in society as they want, so we can get balanced here in favor of a gratifying society. There's 3 minor rules. The societies who hasn't heard this tape, councils who hasn't heard this tape, cannot argue for slavery, for pedophilia or sex, or for violence. And that's just that. Then there's walks between the groups. So if a department needs to confer with another department based on the evolution of the inner circle or from the communication with the department that a provider, then the council halts and walks are produced until information has been shared between the departments in favor of new information that is then presented to the representation of these departments to the inner circle, which then is informed of these changes and then debates from there. And that's pretty much it. If we do that, then we have a free world in 20, 30, 50 years. Next month. That's it. So anyway, I wish you a happy joy. I wish you a good hunt, all peddlers. I hope you will have a wonderful time with your shaggy. Aunties, I hope you have understood this tape and have heard it many times until making a stance. And Leah, you are bonkers. You are a corporate horse, and you deserve nothing because you can't think for anything but yourself. Hardly. I have so much pity for you, Leah. You're so lost, and you know you can't defend yourself, for yourself, in yourself, any of the actions you're doing because it feels wrong. And you can't pinpoint that. You just realize I'm not doing it right. You never knew how to do it right, and you only knew how to do it wrong. So this is pretty much it for you. This video is of course on the dark web where you found it, and if you haven't done so already, my dear brothers and sisters, please share this with any and all that you know. It's also going to go on WebPet. Yeah, I'm tired. Thank you very much for listening, and good luck.